I really enjoyed my time in The Witcher 3. I played it for the first time in 2025, clocked in at 64 hours with still lots of side content and 2 expansions to complete, a remarkable RPG. However, there is one specific, crucial part that felt like a miss for me. I felt dissonance between how I interpreted the various choices that influenced the ending versus what the game meant by these choices. Thankfully, I felt this wasn't a problem in Cyberpunk 2077. Both the ending I got for the base game and Phantom Liberty felt like it perfectly aligned with not only my choices but who I am as a person. There was congruence with my values and my interactions with the characters and the ending. This is possible due to amazing writing and developers who are smart enough to respect both the intellectual and emotional intelligence of their players, so it's kinda odd how in The Witcher 3, a game that does still have great writing and is from the same studio, missed the mark for me here. I felt like the ending I got was completely contrary to how I viewed the decisions I made and contrary to my thoughts about the characters. I haven't experienced this level of dissonance between my interpretation of a choice and the game's interpretation of a choice in a long time. I think the fact that CDPR fixed this problem in Cyberpunk with the quality of the narrative they achieved there truly shows how much of a beast this studio is. I wish I could talk about the positives of The Witcher 3 because they certainly outweigh the cons, but I think exploring the ending choices we will discuss can spark an interesting conversation on what makes a meaningful choice in an RPG and a bit about the human condition as well. Spoilers for The Witcher 3 follow. There are 5 decisions that influence the ending for The Witcher 3. What you do with Ciri after Vesemir's death, how you let Ciri speak with the sorceress's lodge, what you let her do to Avalok's lab, if you visit Skjald's grave or not, and how you deal with the Emperor. All of these revolve around Ciri, and Geralt's actions as a father figure. The way this is set up, it's pretty clear that these choices are less so about the actual outcomes and circumstances of the choices, and more about Ciri's relationship with Geralt. Does Ciri feel supported? Does Ciri feel like Geralt trusts her and respects her as an adult? When we see Ciri entering the White Frost, she has memories of her moments with Geralt, specifically the 5 choices mentioned before. Ciri's connection to Geralt literally determines whether she lives or not. I got the bad ending where Ciri dies, so clearly my relationship with her sucked, but that's not how I felt. I felt I was very supportive of Ciri and encouraged her to make her own decisions whenever I could. This is the dissonance I was talking about earlier, so what happened? Part of the dissonance here is that only these 5 choices matter. I can be supportive and build her confidence throughout the entire game, but if even 3 of these 5 choices I don't, I get the bad ending. This already creates a narrative where my choices seemingly don't matter because the devs deemed 5 specific choices as the ones that actually determine my relationship with Ciri. I think the choices revolving Skjald's grave and the Emperor actually make a lot of sense and were laid out pretty well, so those I won't discuss. We will discuss the other 3 that were not laid out well. First, after Vesemir dies, Ciri is understandably distraught. Everyone is. The Battle of Kaer Morhen left no one without scars, either physical or mental. The morning after, Ciri is having trouble focusing, and you are hit with these 2 options in response. You can't win everything versus I know something that will lighten your mood. Let me remind you, Vesemir has just died, who was also like a father figure to Ciri. Even though they aren't related by blood, make no mistake, this is the death of a family member. Not only that, Ciri witnesses the death and was close enough to it where she may be feeling guilty, especially because of her powers. When something of this magnitude happens, I don't feel as if an appropriate response is, hey, this sucks, but I'm sure a little treat from grandma will make you feel better. There is grief here that needs to be processed. The first option of you can't win everything I interpreted as strong and as capable as you are, life is going to win sometimes. That's okay. All you can do is try your best, accept the bad, and I'm here to help you through this. This message embodies a truth of life. You can't control everything. All you can control are your actions, and I, as a supportive figure, am here to help you during the times that life kicks you down. There is a fact and an actionable way to handle the bad that has just happened. The other option of lifting her mood feels inappropriate to me. I am someone who really needs to feel and understand my emotions. I rarely feel better from a mood lift for when something so serious happens. It feels like a cheap trick. However, this is not how the game interprets either of these choices. For the first choice, you can't win everything just means life sucks, you can't win them all, so let's drink our sorrows away. Clearly quite different from how I interpreted the choice. Ciri is clearly not getting what she needs here. The second choice, Ciri verbally thanks Geralt after their snowball fight. Ciri gets what she needs here, which is also a bit different from my interpretation. Instead of the first choice being an opportunity to look inwards and gain some wisdom from Geralt, it's just a distraction. Instead of the second choice being a cheap mood lift like a treat you'd give to a dog, it's an interactive snowball fight. The fact that this is interactive is genius. It actually lets you build more of a bond with Ciri through gameplay. Yet this still feels cheap to me in some way. Also, let's not forget, Ciri asks Geralt how he deals with staying focused on the mission.
How do you do it?
What?
Always manage to pull yourself together. Focus. No matter what's happening.
So this is an answer Ciri is asking from Geralt. The option of, I think I know what might lift your spirits, is just odd. Ciri is asking Geralt directly for his wisdom, and with this framing, the choice that cheers her up is also kind of a distraction. If I was to be more charitable, Geralt wants what's best for Ciri. He knows her better than me, and maybe he really recognizes that what she needs in this moment is that snowball fight, even though she's not asking for it. If I was to be even more charitable, the research on grief, particularly the dual process model, shows that dealing with grief healthily can involve bouncing back and forth between loss-oriented coping, which is dealing with the emotions head-on and processing them, and restoration-oriented coping, which involves some sense of normalcy and break from the labor of grief processing. This can be returning to familiar comforts or finding new ones, but it's some form of returning to the world like a new hobby or maybe even a snowball fight with your father figure. Now, even through this lens, there are problems with the game's ability to consistently follow the research, but we'll move on. Second, choosing whether to accompany Ciri when talking to the sorceresses or not. Now, if this choice was presented as a binary, either accompany her or don't, I would have much less of a problem here. I get that part of helping Ciri become her own person is trusting her, and she's a very capable woman in her own right. Geralt doesn't always need to be there for her. In fact, he can't. That's how she'll grow up. The right decision here is framed as trusting Ciri's ability to not get manipulated by the sorceresses, who are very manipulative. So you can choose not to go in, but Ciri at the same time is actually pretty worried here. She seems a little less confident than usual, so I did choose to go with her. Geralt even says after choosing this, I'll go with you if you want, but then Ciri just doesn't really say anything to that question.
I'll go with you if you want.
They'll weigh their words more carefully with you there.
When I chose to go with her, I went in with the mindset of just being a fly on the wall. This is pretty serious business, but I will not stick my nose where it doesn't belong unless Ciri asks me to. So I was pretty stoked when I had the option to say exactly that. However, the immediate next choice is a choice where Geralt interrupts and offers his own input anyways. So actually, we can't really follow through with the decision the game sets us up to make. So why give me the option to say I'll just be a fly on the wall and then not give me a chance to be a fly on the wall? What makes matters even worse is when Philippa asks Geralt if he trusts Avallac'h, you have three answers. One is you do, one is you don't, and the other is it doesn't matter if I trust him, it only matters if Ciri does. Which is a supportive fly on the wall sort of answer that should instill Ciri with confidence. So if Geralt is able to do this, why weren't we able to choose a similar option in the very previous dialogue option? And then, even if you do choose this still counts towards lowering Ciri's confidence. It just doesn't make any sense. As soon as you enter the conversation, it doesn't matter what Geralt says, it doesn't even really let you choose how Geralt handles it, and takes away the player's ability to leave their input out of it. But then later it does give you that ability, but it still doesn't change anything, so I really don't understand what the intention was here. The choice is framed as either don't go with her but keep quiet, but we never actually get to keep quiet. Lastly, destroy Avallac'h's lab. Perhaps this is where I feel like I have messed up the most. I have a general philosophy that knowledge and research should not be destroyed. I just don't really like that idea, call it the academic in me. When Ciri discovers what Avallac'h's research is about, which is the gene Ciri has, her frustration is completely justified. who she saw as a friend may not have seen her as anything more than a research project. I think there is a balance a parent should teach their kids when it comes to emotional regulation. Expressing anger isn't bad, but some ways are constructive and others destructive. The issue with destructive anger is if you're not careful, you can end up hurting yourself or those around you. In the exchange between Avalok's assumed lover, I wasn't fully buying that Avalok hates Ciri. I didn't trust this woman who said all this, and I'm glad the game actually gives us a chance to express this as Geralt. So I felt it would be misguided if I let Ciri indulge this hatred in a destructive way. So again, that's how I perceived this decision, but that's not what the game was saying. I thought it would be an impulsive, destructive act, but the game turns it into a bonding experience between Ciri and Geralt. Geralt destroys the lab with Ciri, and they have a great time doing it, complete with all this cheery music that comes on. Clearly the better decision. Geralt and Ciri's relationship is quite playful, and I think these moments are genuinely very fitting. It just feels like they could have been framed better for me to understand what's actually going on. These three decisions, for the reasons mentioned above, felt miscommunicated. And this is not just me being upset that the decision I made didn't turn out how I wanted. In Cyberpunk 2077, this happens too, but the difference is I feel like the options are laid out correctly and align with what I think about the situation. It's not about the outcome of a choice, it's about the game being able to read my intent and me being able to read the game's intent when making the choice. This is where player agency really matters. If the game is speaking the same language as me, that does a lot for how cohesive the game feels. Let's take a choice from Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, for example. Obvious spoilers, so here's your warning. In Phantom Liberty, the biggest choice is whether you side with Reed or Somi during the Firestarter quest. We are here to help Somi and ourselves, and these two characters provide us with different paths for that. Reed's path is well thought out, with the backing of the NUSA and Alex. Somi's plan is much more of a Hail Mary, but respects Somi's autonomy. I chose to side with Reed, and even though basically every step of his plan does not go accordingly, I never felt misled because the initial choice was framed properly. Sadly for me, The Witcher 3 fell short in this regard. It's a small but vital drop in the ocean. And it's possible I just for whatever reason was worse at reading this game's intention here, but I think it's also a two-way street. This is a dynamic between both the game and the player, and I play a lot of RPGs, yet the dissonance I felt here I rarely do with those games. All that being said, I still enjoy this game and I still really like what CDPR is doing. I do believe the way they are telling their stories is the future of storytelling, not just in video games, I mean as a whole. In fact, I got a whole video planned later this year specifically analyzing why Phantom Liberty works on so many levels. CDPR fixed this narrative dissonance issue I felt in Cyberpunk, and I can only imagine they will get stronger with their next projects.